I'm always learning what to ask to my clients when new problems present themselves. You know, on a very basic level, I sometimes have to explain to my clients what live event production means, and you know, you always need something that you're going to be capturing. In this situation, we've got a camera person in the room along with my desktop that's being screen grabbed in the back, and this archive will be available because they're recording it on a Ninja in the back, it looks like. We need, if they were streaming this, they need to, of course, have an encoder to push it out. You need an endpoint that's going to receive it. You need a player, and you might need an archive as well as, of course, the internet working in that room. I would say one of the biggest problems I can have, especially if I'm remote or in a new venue, is making sure that the internet's not just working on the day of or the day before or the week before whenever we're doing our speed tests, but making sure that the IT resources are available should a DHCP lease expire hours before an event happens, and then we're stuck without having our internet. Capture sources could be any number of resources that are available in the production kit. I'm going to gloss over some of this because it's not as important. Encoders, this is an interesting point because I know so many people, I'm on a couple of webcaster groups on Facebook where there's technically minded people discussing their solutions. And there's a lot of, I would say the vast majority of live event production that I see happening with smaller budgets is happening with software, right? They're using, a lot of folks are using OBS because it's free. It can do, you know, pretty much everything that FMLE from Adobe did before it and more. You can even use FFmpeg. I did the FFmpeg workshop yesterday, and I was talking about how FFmpeg can capture from a webcam, can capture from decklink drivers. It can capture, you know, it's amazing what you can do with FFmpeg. I usually use FFmpeg in a pinch. If something's broken, it's sort of my last resort to encode something through FFmpeg on a laptop that could drive a live stream. I joked in my workshop yesterday that I like to do nonprofit work. I like to do pro bono work for nonprofits that I believe in. One of those is Pacific Wild in Canada and the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And they wanted to have a live stream on social media outlets of the effluent coming out of fish farm processing to show just how much of this potentially polluted fish byproduct was being just thrown right out into the bay where other fish would have to survive. They were literally in a shack. They were like, it was a covert operation. They were in a shack that barely had two bars worth of signal, and they didn't have any encoding gear. And so I basically, they were originally going to use this really high-end Axis camera that had a waterproof casing that they could like navigate. They didn't need a diver, and they were going to like run this thing down. The problem was where this pipe was coming out, it was a good 110 feet, I think, below the surface of the water, so they didn't have a long enough cable to tether this camera down to where they wanted to grab it. They only had this ancient composite video source that could get down there, so it was a very low quality video image, but you know, it was all analog at that point, and that wasn't our plan. We were just going to take this H.264 feed coming right out of the Axis camera, push it on out through their cell connection, and make it live on Facebook. Well, at the last minute it didn't work, so I had to basically send them a Blackmagic Design shuttle, an Intensity shuttle, because that was the only thing I had that would work on their ancient Windows laptop and had USB 3, thankfully, and I basically remotely controlled their computer with TeamViewer and downloaded a pre-built binary of FFmpeg and started streaming that way. And it worked. We were able to get a stream out. They were complaining about the quality, but there wasn't much I could do about the fact that they went from an HD, really nice looking camera to an SD source that was over a composite video connection. And by that I mean that old-fashioned yellow RCA plug that you rarely see even on equipment anymore. Again, just going into some definitions, an endpoint that you're publishing could be a CDN like Akamai. It could be your own server that you're running on the cloud. It could be a social media outlet like Facebook or YouTube. Well, I already mentioned streaming server there. It could be something that's running on-prem, at a colo, or in the cloud. I will talk more about social media outlets in a little bit. The player could be, of course, anything that, like I just said, there's a lot of player offerings on the market, a lot of them free. You can do a lot with VideoJS. Like I said, a lot of my clients already come with JW Player infrastructure, so I just work with that. It's probably the player me and my team have done the most development with. Let me go over here. So not every live stream will need these, and this is an important part of the equation to talk about with stakeholders when you're planning a live stream event. Do they expect there to be some way to prevent others from going into it? Do they need low latency? It's always funny to me when a client will say, "Oh, the stream's delayed," it could be up to 30 seconds with a default HLS installation, right? You got 10-second chunks, 3 chunks on the server. You might have a little bit of latency on the cloud for deploying that, and it's just like, well, is that going to be a problem? Oh no, I just think it's weak, it's delayed. I'm like, okay, well, if it doesn't matter to your viewing audience, then we can make it more low latency, but it might involve some more extra time on development and tweaking our encoding settings. It's pretty easy to get latency down to 6 seconds with HLS. Just do 2-second chunk sizes, 2-second keyframe intervals. Specify the server to have 3, maybe even only 2 chunks per playlist. There's more overhead in your requests that way, but you can get HLS pretty, it's easy to get it less than 30 seconds if you need to. Secure playback, I make that as a differentiator from DRM. DRM, of course, is going to be there for the kind of live streams where people, studio level content. Most of my clients aren't concerned with the DRM encryption on their streams because, again, if it's government or municipalities, that's just not in their rule book. They might want secure playback and encryption though, especially with the medical stuff that I'm doing and for HIPAA compliancy, having everything encrypted over HLS is something that needs to happen. And also maybe even having this, what we call the limited access, where you're using some kind of token string in your playback URL to uniquely identify a viewer so that that stream can't get out to anyone else.